ESPN recently completed a positional player ranking survey that involved input from executives and coaches, and I thought Bears players in a few spots came in pretty underranked and in some areas weren't mentioned at all, and I thought it was disrespectful in a few spots. Listen, I don't want to go over the top, Bears bias here, but once you see some of these rankings, I think a lot of you are going to be like, really? That's where they have that player? So we're going to go position by position and see which Bears landed where, and I'll give my input on all of that. But listen, we're 100% free here on Chicago Bears Now. If you like our coverage more than ESPN, hit that sub button, and ESPN charges you these days with ESPN Plus. We don't charge a dime, so if you want to join the family for free, be sure to subscribe. All right, so kind of a background of what they did in the survey. Kind of already mentioned it, but they had front office execs like GMs, assistant GMs, some scouts, and some active coaches submit top 10 player rankings at all positions on offense and defense: quarterback, running back, corner, edge, defensive tackle, etc. All these rankings included some honorable mentions and then a receiving votes category. Guys who didn't quite crack the top 10 or honorable mentions list based on the vote. So we'll go through it. Not every position we're going to take a deep dive into just based on where the Bears land on it. But we'll get things rolling with quarterback real quick. Not going to spend a ton of time here, obviously. Mahomes 1, Burrow 2, Allen 3. On my own personal thoughts, I'd maybe flip Allen and Burrow just because Burrow has had 2 season-ending injuries in 4 years, but obviously when healthy, you trust him a little bit more. I don't really have any major issues with this top 10 list, and obviously Caleb's not going to be listed here in the top 10 or even under one of the honorable mentions. So no gripes with that. When you have a rookie quarterback, you can't really expect the league to think of you as a top 10 or even 15 guy without going out there and proving it. All right, running back. This is where you get some involvement with the Bears here. No one in the top 10. Christian McCaffrey, no surprise. Breece Hall, 2, good player, but already second best back in the league. I found that interesting. Nick Chubb, who basically missed all last season, at 3. Saquon at 4. Jonathan Taylor. Bijan there at 6. I think he's going to have a huge year. Josh Jacobs in the division in Green Bay. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 in the division as well. Detroit. Derrick Henry, 9. Travis Etienne, 10, who he's been good. Not great, though, with Jacksonville. You see the next 6 here with Aaron Jones at 11, Minnesota now. Kenneth Walker, 12. Pacheco, 13. I think he's a little underrated. James Cook, 2. I thought he had a great year last year. Alvin Kamara, 15. Joe Mixon, 16. DeAndre Swift was number 17, which I don't think he should be top 10, but, is Alvin Kamara still a better player than DeAndre Swift, or is he just a bigger name? Is Joe Mixon still a better player than DeAndre Swift? Now, the tricky thing with Swift is before last year, Detroit kind of ran him out of town because they were like, you're just not figuring it out. But then he goes to Philly, and he's awesome. He was a fringe top 10 guy last year. There was real talk out of Philly that he was underutilized, and he's always been capable as a pass catcher, but he had his best year as a rusher last year. I think he's a top 15 back. So, I'm not going to sit here and make major gripe, 17 on the list. So this is not really where the disrespect kind of lies on this list, but I think he could have been a little bit higher based on these, but I'm not going to make a huge issue out of it. I do think he's going to have a good season for Chicago. I think the reason you can't say he's top 10 is he's not really a 3-down back. Like, he's a lead back in a rotation, but Khalil Herbert, if he's here, still going to have a role. So is Roschon Johnson. Now, coming up next is where I believe the disrespect really begins, and if you can guess what the next position group is, quarterback, running back, probably know where we're going next. You could probably start to put 2 and 2 together. We'll get to that here in just a second, but I want to tell you guys about this deal first. This Bears t-shirt is on sale for a limited time only, chatsports.com/Bears shirt. You know what I like about this shirt? It's simple, it's crisp, it's clean, and it's on sale. Like, sometimes you see these shirts, there's crazy designs or this and that. They're trying to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you just need a simple shirt, and you got the Chicago Bears text there with the logo as well. Go pick one up today. Link is in the comments and in the description. Okay, wide receiver. Well, top 10, no DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. Okay. No real gripes at the top. I mean, I personally would lean Tyreek over Justin Jefferson, but that just depends on your style. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, kind of same deal. I'd probably lean Lamb over Chase, but it's close. Adams at 5, A.J. Brown at 6. Top 6, I really don't have a huge issue with. Amon-Ra St. Brown, really good player, but he benefits from volume in that offense. And then it starts to get a little weird for me. I think Mike Evans historically is underrated. Was he have 10 or 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons? But he's not. Is he a top 8 guy still? That feels a little high for me. Stephon Diggs in the top 10 is a joke. Like, let's just get that out of the way with Brandon Ayuk at 10. Stephon Diggs is not a top 10 receiver. Buffalo, 8 more dead money this year to get rid of him, okay? He has not had a 100-yard game since, September of last year? Like, he has not been dominant for a while now. I just don't see how these execs and coaches could rank him that high. Like, that's a classic result of he's been that in the past. It's like when these NBA teams pay guys for what they've been, but not for what they currently are. That's kind of Stephon Diggs. Now, maybe he has a revitalization in Houston. He's a good player, but I don't even think he's Houston's number one. Like, I think that's Nico Collins. So I really had an issue with that one. Then you get to the honorable mentions, 11 through 20. Cooper Kupp, 11. Deebo Samuel, 12. I like Deebo Samuel. The guy can't separate on routes. If you want to say offensive weapon, that's fine, but Deebo Samuel is not a better NFL wide receiver than DJ Moore or Keenan Allen. He's just not. You take Brandon Ayuk out of that offense in San Francisco, I think Deebo Samuel's impact falls considerably. Jaylon Waddle and Devontae Smith ahead of Moore and Allen, too. They're both number 2 receivers on their teams. Nico Collins has had one good year in the NFL. He's ahead of DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. And by the way, his one good year wasn't better than Moore or Allen's last year. I found this one to be pretty damn bizarre across the board. And quite frankly, I think it's pretty insane. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen being below guys that were number 2s on teams last year and still are number 2s on those teams. And clear number 2s too. Like, Devontae Smith is a clear number 2 to A.J. Brown. Like, it's not close. Nico Collins is a number 1, but he's been that for a year. DJ Moore has been that his entire career. Keenan Allen's been that for over a decade, and Keenan Allen's not slowing down. In 13 games last year, Keenan Allen had 1,243 yards on over 100 catches. Had he played 17 games, he would have been 3rd in receiving yards last year based on that pace. DJ Moore had almost 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns. And look, I like Justin Fields. I think if circumstances were different, it could have worked out here. This is not a potent passing attack last year. And DJ Moore was still unbelievable in terms of his efficiency and volume in a bad passing offense. I thought this note from Clay Harbor was really telling here. DJ Moore, 6th in yards, 8th in touchdowns, 18th best receiver, according to scouts, executives, and coaches in this survey. Again, despite playing in a bad passing offense. Keenan Allen, 4th in yards per game, 2nd in receptions per game, not ranked. Not ranked at all. He was in the receiving votes category. I put him 20th because they had 9 honorable mentions, and he was the top receiving votes guy after that. How could you possibly – you think Keenan Allen's the 20th best receiver in football? He's a top 3 route runner in this sport. I find that wild based on this survey here. And, again, I got to just hype DJ Moore up a little bit more. 6th in receiving yards despite the 28th best passing offense, which included Justin Fields for 13 games, who, again, I like, but is a dual-threat guy that's more reliable as a runner, and undrafted free agent Tyson Bagent for 4 games. I don't know, man. Like, it kind of just – this kind of feels like, well, it's Chicago. They're not known for offense, which is true, but these 2 receivers are big-time players. So 18 and 20, I don't know, man. That's pretty disrespectful in my opinion. If you think these wide receiver rankings suck, spam, boo in the chat. And listen, I can also acknowledge receivers – there's never been more volume of good receivers in this league, but DJ Moore and Keenan Allen got to be higher than 18 and 20, man. All right, let's go to tight ends now. More disrespect here. No Cole Kmet in the top 10. You know, a lot of these guys are really good at one part of their craft. Like Dalton Kincaid, excellent receiving tight end. He doesn't block at all, okay? You know, Evan Ingram even less. He's not even a tight end. He's a slot receiver. Schultz blocks a little. Hawkinson does some. I think Kmet had a better year than Hawkinson last year, though, and Hawkinson's top 5, and Kmet's nowhere to be found. I don't have an issue with the top 4. And Njoku's kind of similar too. Good receiving tight end, doesn't block. I actually think Goddard should be a little higher because he does a little bit of both. But then you get to the honorable mentions, which are 5 more guys. Kmet's 14th. Pat Freiermuth? Pat Freiermuth ahead of Cole Kmet. He had 300 yards last year. Trey McBride doesn't block. And by the way, that should be Arizona. Mislabeling on my part for McBride. It just like Kmet, again, when you go back to the Bears being a bad passing offense last year, 9th in yards, and he's a better blocker than a lot of the guys in front of him. Like, what am I missing here? Like, I get these guys, these execs and coaches can't watch every player every week. They're already working for a team where that's their primary job, but Kmet's been top 9 in receiving yards 2 years in a row, and last year he established himself as one of the better run-blocking tight ends in the NFL. He's 14th. He's an average starter at the tight end position. I firmly disagree with that notion. Offensive line, they did tackle and guard. No reason to list them all out. Only Darnell Wright even received votes, which, hey, I'm not really going to complain too much. I think that's fair for Wright. He's been a one-year player. Receiving votes, I think, actually shows respect that people see his potential. I think he could very much be at least an honorable mention tackle next year if he has a good year. And remember, this includes left and right tackles. Same with guards. I will say this, though. Tevin Jenkins doesn't even get a vote among interior guys. When he plays, he's a stud. Now, I get it. He has injuries. He's moved positions some. So, again, not a huge gripe, but doesn't even receive a vote from an exec in the league, a coach. That was a little surprising. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the ball as we continue to go through this ESPN survey where coaches, execs listed their top 10 players or ranked them, submitted them to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, and he kind of spit out all the data here. I'll tell you what, kind of like receiver, a lot of good edges in this league. No issues on the top 5. I will say this, though. Aiden Hutchinson, he's already the 6th best edge. Like, he's really good, but he's already number 6. Like, Josh Hines Allen, who just changed his name, if people were wondering, changed his last name there, familial reason. Hutchinson is already better than him? I don't know about that. Danielle Hunter, too, like, he racks up sacks, but he does not stop the run at all. Like, he's kind of a misleading player where he's really good, but he's not elite because he doesn't play the run. I think Hendrickson's underrated on this list. I think Burns should be a little bit higher as well. I definitely think our guy Montez Sweat should be. Montez Sweat here at number 15. Khalil Mack had a high-volume sack year last year, and he's really good. And we love Khalil Mack here in Chicago. He's 32 now, though. He's not an every-down player at times. He has some injuries that have racked up. I think 11's a little high for him. Hassan Reddick doesn't play the run that much. I think he's too high. Montez Sweat's a top 5 run defender as an edge, and last year had the best year of his career as a pass rusher. I think he should be around 10. I'm not saying he's in that top 5 or 6 category. He is not. The Myles Garrett's, the Max Crosby's, those guys have separated. Like, they're just in their own world. But if you watch the Bears play football last year, like, take my bias out of it. Any average person, the defense before Sweat was on the team, below average. After, they finished the last 8 weeks top 5 in most categories. Like, just after making that trade alone. That's pretty significant. That shows impact to me. Best year, like I said, in terms of sack production. I think he was 9th or 10th in the NFL in sacks. Ton of QB hits. He's always been an excellent run defender. He changed this defense on the fly, by the way, in the middle of a season. I think he should get some more love than 15 when it comes to where he should be ranked. Do you guys think he's a top 10 guy? Again, I'm not saying like 5 or 6. 9 to 12. I think that's fair. 8 to 12. Like, Aiden Hutchinson is 6 and Sweat is 15. That big of a gap. I just don't see that. Now, Hutchinson, he's younger. He's still ascending. Sweat's still ascending too, but in reality, Hutchinson probably has a higher ceiling. I'm not disputing that, but I think Montez Sweat is, if you paid attention to how he impacted this defense last year, I don't think you can downplay it. We're going to skip defensive tackles. We know it's not a great position for the Bears. Like, I would make no argument for Javon Dexter, Andrew Billings, or anyone else to even receive a vote. 2 of your top 3 guys are rookies who haven't proved a ton yet, and Billings, nice player, but he's not going to be a high-impact guy. Okay, linebacker. This one was weird to me. And again, I think this one in particular kind of is where the scouts and the front office guys kind of value things when they were scouting the players, not actually what's happened. Like Tremaine Edmunds. I like Tremaine, but we've talked about this on this show. He was not even nearly the player TJ Edwards was last year. So what is happening? Well, scouts fell in love with him in the combine process, pre-draft process, because he's 6'5", 250, and runs like a receiver. Good player, but he's not a top 7 off-ball linebacker. He's just not. TJ Edwards, meanwhile, is all the way down at 16. Anyone who watched 3 Bears football games last year will tell you TJ Edwards is a better player. Now, to ESPN's credit, in their little breakdown, they did have a quote from an anonymous exec that said Edwards outplayed him last year, and that's absolutely true. The numbers bear that out. The eye test bears that out. Just impact bears that out. Edmunds had one more interception, so I guess you could say he made one more splash play, but Edwards is far more consistent. Now, I like Tremaine, and I think he will take a step forward, and he's got his guy back on this staff now, and Eric Washington, who's the defensive coordinator. I think the second half of the year he played a lot better, but if you're being objective, TJ Edwards had a better year last year. Like, there's just no question about it. So I think ESPN overrated Edmunds, and again, not necessarily ESPN, the people who submitted this survey into ESPN, and then they underrated Edwards. That's kind of how I see it. So kind of a little gripe, and in another area, kind of like, I don't think you guys got that one right either, in one that benefited a Bears player. Okay, cornerbacks here. This is tricky. I don't want to go completely nuclear because before this past year, Jaylon Johnson was just a good corner, not an elite one. But he was the best corner in football last year, I thought. PFF had him as their highest graded guy. I think the stat that shows how dominant he was last year is the quarterback rating. We've talked about this before. 33.3 when targeted. If you spike the football every play, the quarterback has a 39.4 rating. So when they threw at him, it was worse than spiking the football. That's how sticky in coverage he was last year. 4 interceptions, which was a career high. He just was dominant, man. And he's the 8th best corner in the NFL. Again, I wouldn't put him 1 because he's only been dominant for 1 year. I'm not going to overreact to that year. But he should be higher than 8. Jalen Ramsey is not a top 5 corner anymore. Why are we acting like he is? He's a good player, not a top 5 corner anymore. Like, again, I think a lot of people that submitted into this survey got lazy. Oh, yeah, he's a big name. Yeah, he's my 4th highest corner. No, Jaylon Johnson was dominant last year. He should be in the top 5. So I thought that was an error in judgment for people who submitted into this. Now, Jaylon goes out there and dominates again. I'm sure he'd be higher next year, but I thought that was a pretty big whiff by a lot of these people. Show Jaylon some love. Type 1 in the comments, his new jersey number, as he switched from 33 to 1 after Justin Fields got traded. Hopefully he plays like the best corner once again this year. We'll wrap up with safeties. Nothing really huge to gripe about here. As I will say this though, I think Kyle Hamilton's better than Antoine Winfield, but that's neither here nor there. No real issues with the top 10. I will say this though. Jaquan Brisker was in the receive votes category, so that was cool to see. Kevin Byard did not. I'm not that surprised. He didn't play his best football last year. He got traded to Philly midseason. That defense was a joke. So not shocked by that. I thought maybe he'd receive votes based on what he had done prior to last year. But if I'm going to argue for someone dominating last year and not getting enough love, I got to be consistent. Didn't play nearly as well as he normally has last year, so I don't really have an issue with that. So there you have it. ESPN Survey positional rankings. I know a bit of a longer segment, but I thought there's some interesting stuff in there. I think it does go to show, and I would have gripe not just with Bear stuff, but this is a Bear show, so that's what we focus on. There's a lot of stuff in there where, like, name value and reputations coming out of the draft carries a lot of weight years into players' careers. I really do think you're seeing that with some of these results. And the fact that Jaylon Johnson and Tremaine Edmunds were the only 2 players on this team voted top 10 at their position, and by the way, Tremaine should not be. He's not a top 10 off-ball linebacker based on how he's played, especially last year. I think that's off. I think a couple of guys got undervalued and Tremaine got overvalued. So certainly some interesting data there. All right, there you have it. Chicago Bears now. Interesting segment today. Hopefully you guys thought so at least. My name is Harrison Graham. If you want more free Bears content, go ahead and subscribe today.